Hello, and welcome to the Expansion Room, where inner work meets impact. I'm your host, Shervon Laurice, psychospiritual guide and coach on this journey. And today's episode is going to be a little bit different. It's kind of what I'm calling a threshold episode. It's a moment of completion as a door closes and another opens to something new. So I started this podcast about 5 months ago, and it was something that I had thought about and others had asked me to do for some time. And it was one of those things that I was like, oh, no, I'm not interested in that. And then I came across talkradio.nyc and was curious about this particular platform. And I reached out and had a conversation with the executive producer, and we started formulating and talking about a show, what I could bring to the community, to the world, with the kinds of gifts and work that I've done in my career and in my life. And so we started back in August, and it has become something for me of a gift of being able to prepare every week for this show and to realize how much I already had within me that I could bring forth, and the guests that I've been able to have on the show have really added to that richness. So today's episode, I'm calling the threshold episode because I will be transitioning. Today's episode is my final episode on talkradio.nyc's platform, though it is not the end of the expansion room itself. It has truly been an honor for me to host this show here on this platform and to grow with you and explore the depths of healing and consciousness and bring meaningful conversations to life here. And as with all sacred journeys, right, there's some kind of a moment that comes up where there's a transition, not necessarily an ending. And those transitions are an initiation to the next chapter. And so that's the way I'm seeing it. And so today's episode, we're going to explore what it means to cross a threshold, what it means to let go and to become, and what it means to honor the sacred next chapter unfolding within us all. So let's begin. There's a sacred art to completion, I think. Every cycle in our lives, whether that's a relationship, whether romantic or professional, a role that we're playing in the world, a season, a creative offering that we might be bringing to the world, it all asks to be completed with intention. The same kind of intention we hopefully began with, right? Creation um, allows us to see something be birthed and come into fruition. And as we know with nature, everything has its ebbs and flows, its rise and fall, its growth, and then its descent, right? And so completion is not the same as closure necessarily, but it is an energetic release. It is a conscious honoring of what has been. And so, over these past 5 months of hosting the expansion room on this platform, it has been a practice in presence, leadership, and vulnerability for me, I feel like I've grown in ways that I did not imagine that I would in being able to offer this show to the community. It has confirmed for me a few things that the inner world always guides the outer expression of our lives, and that conscious leadership begins with deep listening, and that expansion requires integration, not rushing into the next thing, and that transitions are sacred portals if we allow them to be. So I want to take a moment to honor this chapter, these 5 months, to name its gifts, to acknowledge its growth, and to thank this space in particular for holding me and this community, all of those who have tuned in regularly to listen or watch. So I'm inviting you to do the same in your own lives, right? So I'm doing this for myself with my show, with my practice and what I offer in the world. And it is the end of a year. We are here in at the end of 2025. And so this transition for me comes at a time when there's a natural transition happening all around us, right, in our environment. We're moving right into winter. Those of you who are here watching or listening on the East Coast, particularly the Mid-Atlantic, you know it's been cold. Right? Probably one of the coldest Decembers some of us have experienced in a while. So we're transitioning in to winter. We are coming in to the end of a year, and people traditionally like to start the new year with resolutions. And I tend to believe in intention setting rather than resolution. So intentions for me are broader, and we bring ourselves each day almost in a ceremonial way to action towards those intentions, right? And so we're doing that now as we move towards the end of this year. And so as you tune in for yourself while hearing my voice, I invite you to ask yourself, what cycle in your own life is coming to completion right now? What cycle in your own life is coming to completion right now? Sometimes things come up for us for completion and we don't even realize it. We still forge ahead with our day-to-day activities, our goals, our to-dos, our schedule, and we miss these opportunities that might come in that hint to us or nudge to us. There's a shift that needs to be made, that there's a completion of one thing and the possibility of a new thing that lays ahead. We miss it because for some people, we like our routines. We like things to be the way they are, the way that we've known them to be for some time. For others, there's a resistance, right? A desire to still hold on to something that either we love or cherish or we've simply gotten used to. And so we don't really want to let it end, right? Or let it go, come to completion with it. Sometimes that's a relationship. Sometimes it's a job. For me, I've had relationships that definitely needed to end, and I can count the amount of years that I stayed after I knew that that relationship should end. I have stayed at jobs longer than I should have because there's security in having an actual job where you get, it's a 9 to 5 basically, and you get a paycheck. I remember when I left my job with the federal government, and there were a couple of coworkers that were like, "What? You're going to leave you're going to leave the safety net of the federal government of this good paying job and it's consistent, what? To do your own thing?" But one coworker in particular said that she would never consider such a thing because there was safety in knowing that every 2 weeks that she was going to receive a paycheck, and to be self-employed or to be an entrepreneur or a business owner felt too risky for her. For me, the thought of being an entrepreneur felt freeing. It felt exciting to know that I had turned in my notice and that I was free to move forward doing something that I really truly enjoyed and really truly loved. And so, yes, I could have stayed there, and maybe there's some alternate universe version of me that is still working that job, although with the things that have been going on in the last year, maybe not. Um, but this version of me said yes to myself and to that nudge that was going on in the back of my mind. So ask yourself that question: what cycle in your life is coming up for completion right now? And where might you need to pause, breathe, and consciously close a chapter before you begin another? Because completion creates space for what is next, for what is new. So we're up at our first break. And when we come back, we're going to be talking a little bit more about letting go. So come on back.
Are you a conscious co-creator? Are you on a quest to raise your vibration and your consciousness? I'm Sam Leibowitz, your conscious consultant, and on my show, The Conscious Consultant Hour, Awakening Humanity, we will touch upon all these topics and more. Listen live at our new time on Thursdays at 12 noon Eastern Time. That's The Conscious Consultant Hour, Awakening Humanity, Thursdays 12 noon on talkradio.nyc.
Are you a high-achieving, growth-oriented leader? Are you interested in developing your authentic leadership while creating a healthy, inclusive workplace? Hi, I'm Dr. Mira Brancu, host of The Hard Skills on talkradio.nyc at 5 p.m. Eastern on Tuesdays, where we discuss how leaders develop the hard skills needed to make a greater impact. We interview experts, have live coaching, and tackle these challenges. Listen to The Hard Skills on Tuesday at 5 p.m. Eastern on talkradio.nyc.
You're listening to Talk Radio NYC. Uplift, educate, empower.
Welcome back to the Expansion Room. I'm your host, Shervon Laurice, and today we are talking about thresholds, the shift that we make when we're stepping away from one thing and moving towards something else. And today's episode will be my last episode on this particular platform, but does not mean that the show will end. And so when we think about threshold moments, they're powerful experiences. People can usually point to threshold moments in their lives when something big changed, when they let go of one way of being in the world and stepped into another or a new way of being. And so threshold moments are powerful, not necessarily because they're dramatic, but because they are quiet invitations to the soul. Letting go of anything is rarely easy, but it is usually clarifying. And so for me, shifting where my podcast is hosted is an act of alignment. And it's a choice to create something new, a show that expands even deeper into the work I've been doing within myself and with my clients. It is work that is rooted in embodied spirituality, nervous system attunement and alignment, identity expansion, energetic alignment, somatic wisdom, and the sacred architecture of transformation. And in all of that, there's a freedom. And the freedom for me is to be able to have more flexibility and maybe even more time, right? More space to do the things that are starting to come up for me, nudge me forward into deeper work within the community that I serve. A threshold is a spiritual metaphor. It is kind of like the place where the past cannot follow, and yet the future has not yet been formed. I liken it to this feeling. Um, this is the first time I remember this feeling coming over me was about 20 years ago. And I remembered this morning as I was thinking about this episode. 20 years ago, it's a little over 20 years ago, it was this moment where I had gotten the acceptance letter for grad school, for the program that I wanted to move through to become a pastoral counselor. And I had taken some time, some years to find the right graduate program for me. And when I found this program, it was just intuitive. I knew it was the right program for me. It allowed for not only psychology and mental health and theory to be in the space of working with a client, but it also invited spirituality in, because even then I knew you could not know yourself fully until you knew your spirit, right? And so this program, as a becoming a pastoral counselor, I got the letter and was very, of course, excited. And this was at the beginning of 2001. So this is a little, almost 25 years ago. And I felt like I was standing literally on the precipice of, like, the image that came in my mind was I was standing on the edge of a cliff or a mountain, and I was about to jump into the unknown. And so what was behind me was everything I knew and was familiar with. And what was ahead of me was something that I didn't know, but was calling me. And so there are these moments that have come up for me again and again over this past 25, almost 25 years. Wow, time has flown. Um, and so every time I feel that feeling of standing with the mountain behind me and all I know and the unknown ahead of me that's calling me, it's exciting, it's titillating, it's a it's a yearning within me or a desire within me that's bubbling up to the surface that needs to be expressed, and I have to move towards it. It's the moment for me and probably for all of us where we feel both maybe a sense of loss of what has been, because you do have to let go of something, right? I have really enjoyed being on this platform, and I have really enjoyed working with all the people that I've worked with on this platform and have connected with on this platform. But in letting go of what has been, there's also the possibility of what is becoming, what is ahead of me. So I'm standing at that threshold now. And I suspect, especially since we're at the end of a year and soon to step into a new year, all of you, or at least many of you, are experiencing that as well. There could also be a number of you who are experiencing threshold moments in your own life, whether that's in career, whether that's relationship, whether that's some other area of your personal life. Like one of my favorite things that I've been talking about with women in my life, because we are of that age, is menopause. That is a threshold moment as you're moving through perimenopause towards menopause. There are things you let go of that have been familiar to you, and there is something a little unfamiliar that you're moving towards. So we all have these kinds of transitions in our lives, and I'm inviting each and every one of you to be aware of them, right? These transitional threshold moments. So, as we are coming to the end of this year, I'm going to ask you another question. What do you need to let go of in your life to become the person that your next chapter requires? What do you need to let go of to become the person your next chapter requires? Right? Because oftentimes we can't continue holding on to the old and be able to pick up the new. There are spaces in our lives where both the old and the new cannot reside. When we desire to become something new, we cannot hold on to the old identity. We have to let it go in order to step into the new. So, what has been calling you? What has been nudging at you? Maybe it's been for quite some time. Maybe it's a new thing you've noticed, right? And in order for you to step into that newness, there's something you've got to let go of to become that person in your next chapter. So take a moment, take a breath, and allow yourself to notice just what that is. It could be something small, or it could be something big for your life, right? Who you're becoming in the world, or that could be in your personal life, in your career, in your work life, or maybe there's a business idea that you've been noodling on for quite some time, but have not stepped into the knowing of it, right? So in doing that, you have to let go of something. So who we are in the world is always built on or built from our desires. And for too many of us, we hold desires in our hearts and in our minds, but we don't allow them to bubble to the surface so that we can embody them and become the actual person we were always meant to be in the world. I forget who said this, but I've heard it multiple times over my life that the graveyard is full of so many riches because people have died holding on to the gifts and the dreams and the ideas that they were meant to share in the world, right? And so a lot of the work that I do is encouraging people to really be themselves, to become the person that they're longing to be, or that they envision in their minds and hearts to be, or that they wanted to be as kids, but grew up becoming something completely different, right? So, what do you have to let go of in order to step into something new, some new identity? And so, taking another breath and just noticing what comes up for you as you think about this. And we're going to take our next break, our second break. And when we come back, we'll talk a little bit about becoming and the embodiment of an idea and an identity that you have to have in order to become. Come on back.
Misalignment within your sales team or with a client stalls deals and creates unnecessary friction for you and the client, resulting in up to 37% lower win rate. If you're in pre-sales, sales management, or sales enablement, and you'd like to increase revenues, win rate, margins, client satisfaction, and stay competitive, this show is for you. Hi, I'm Art Fromm, host of the Making Seamless Sales Show. Please join me live Thursdays at 7 p.m. Eastern on talkradio.nyc.
Hey everybody, it's Tommy D, the Nonprofit Sector Connector, coming at you from my attic. Each week here on talkradio.nyc, I host the program Philanthropy in Focus. Nonprofits impact us each and every day, and it's my focus to help them amplify their message and tell their story. Listen each week at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time until 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, right here on talkradio.nyc.
You're listening to Talk Radio NYC at www.talkradio.nyc. Now broadcasting 24 hours a day.
Welcome back to the Expansion Room. I'm your host, Shervon Laurice, and today we are talking about crossing the threshold, right, into something new. And one of the things that is key, I think, is in crossing a threshold is knowing that something has to shift in you, an identity has to shift in you. We are here to be as big and as bright and as shiny as we are supposed to be, as we are created to be. And identity involves embodiment. One of the things I think we see a lot of probably in the self-help world in particular, but even in the coaching world, the business coaching world, is we talk a lot about what actions to take and maybe ways to think, but we don't always talk about what is involved in stepping into a new identity. So identities, when we will want to become something new, there's an identity shift that needs to happen, an embodiment that needs to happen. It can't just be based on theory, ideas, right? Or even understanding. Becoming is not about striving. It's not about self-improvement. It is more about the unveiling that happens, much like a a sculptor revealing the beauty by carving away what does not belong from a block of stone. If you've ever watched an artist work with either clay or marble or some other, even wood, they start with a block. And to the untrained eye, it just looks like a block. But they can see underneath it what it is. And they chip away at the parts that don't need to be there, that don't belong, so that the beauty of what they see in their mind's eye shows in reality, right? And so becoming is a remembering, crossing the threshold into something new, in part, is a remembering of who you are beneath the conditioning, the fear, the internalized expectations. When we're crossing a threshold, we're moving into a next chapter, and the next chapter of the expansion room is rooted in that truth. When the show relaunches in January, you will notice a shift, that there will be more embodied practices where I will share with you practices and ways of using your own body, mind, even your own energy to embody the truths that we will be talking about. There will be more spiritual integration. When we first started the show, we talked a lot about things we can do to improve our mental health and our mental well-being. And some of that included spirituality, and there will be more spiritual integration as we move forward with this show. There will be more conversations also about consciousness, healing, and conscious leadership from the inside out. The show is essentially becoming something new because I've been becoming something new. And that evolution is guiding everything now that I create. And so there are things that I want to step into and have more flexibility to step into and more spaciousness to step into in 2026. And so shifting the show to a new platform will give me more of that flexibility and spaciousness, so that I can do more of the things that have in the world that have started to bubble up in my own system and in my own experience. So 2025 has been a really big year for a lot of people to shed old beliefs and identities. I think it was the year of the snake, and so that seems to track, right? Snakes eventually shed their skin at some point each year. And I feel like the people around me have been doing a fair amount of that. And I'm seeing it also in posts in social media. And I have felt like there has been a shedding in my own life as well of old beliefs, old identities, old ways of being, old ways of doing things. And also letting go of things that no longer serve us, right? So your becoming is guiding you too, right? As you think about what you need to let go of, or maybe what you have already let go of this year, know that your becoming, your next chapter, your next step is guiding you too. And when you really tune inward, you'll feel it and you'll know it too. And if you're sensing the subtle pull towards expansion, towards alignment, towards truth of who you are, then I encourage you to really tune in and listen to that pull. Going back to the idea that many people miss when either their body or something in their environment or something that they do on a regular basis is nudging for them to make a shift. Sometimes that happens for people with illness. Sometimes people will have something come up with their health that literally makes them slow down enough to hear and to listen, to turn inward. And that's when they decide to make a change, right? It is, as some people will call it, life forcing you to make a change. And so for some people, it's illness. For others, it's the loss of a significant relationship, either when someone passes away or through divorce or separation. It can even be a loss in job. Something major usually triggers this awakening, this turning inward, this shift towards the possibility of something new, the letting go of the old to move across the threshold to something new, to the new identity, to the new self. We're seeing a lot of that, I think, in my area, particularly. I live outside of DC, so there have been some significant job losses. But I've heard also stories of people who, in losing their job, found spaciousness to reimagine a life where they start their own consulting firm or start working on the business idea that they had, or they step more into the healing arts and the healing work that they've always wanted to do, but work got in the way, right? And so I think as we come to the end of this year, I would encourage people who might be feeling that nudge to ask themselves, why wait? Why wait for life to hand you a situation where you have to or are forced to make a different decision or make a different choice, right? What else is there for you? That was a question that I asked myself in the pandemic. what else is there for me? As you all can probably remember, the pandemic gave us a lot of time that we normally would not have had. And so, besides working and seeing an exorbitant number of clients during that time online, I had a lot more spaciousness in my life to ask the existential question of what else is there? What else can I offer to the world? Is this all there is? Right? And that's when the version of me that would say yes to to being a podcast host started to bubble up to the surface. Took a while for me to get here, but that's when it started to bubble up to the surface. And so why wait till there's another pandemic? Why wait till life hands you a forced choice? Why wait till it's a big transition nudging you? So I'll ask you this. What version, I'll ask you to ask yourself rather, what version of me is emerging right now? As we begin to close out this year, what version of me is emerging right now? And what qualities, what truths, or desires are calling out to be embodied? What qualities, truths, and desires are calling out to be embodied? And I love this word embodied or embodiment because it's really to take what might be moving through your mind as thought and letting it take root within you. Feeling into that. So feel into these two questions, right? And listen to what bubbles to the surface by what you feel in your body. One of the coolest things I know from experience and experience with working with clients, our bodies tell us when we're in alignment and on the right track, moving towards our highest self and our highest good, and our bodies tell us when we're not, right? So when people feel sick to their stomach before they're going to do something that they don't really want to do, or every time they are called on to do something they're not comfortable with, they're sick or they find themselves getting sick. My favorite is a story that I had read about a guy who had to do a presentation at work, and he knew that he was not going to be available to do the things that he was presenting on in the coming year. And literally that morning, he woke up with laryngitis. So our bodies, like the book says, keep the score. And so when you're thinking about what the end of this year means for you and what threshold you might be crossing, and where you're crossing into, let that feeling sink deep into you and then bubble up to the surface for acknowledgement. We are taking our next break, our last break, and when we come back, we will talk about the future and what it's going to likely look like, the what's next for the expansion room. So come on back.
On Frank About Health, we're not just talking healthcare. We're managing disruption and innovation. Over the last 4 years, I've taken you from epilepsy and COVID to mental health, caregiving, and now the front lines of healthcare transformation. Stay tuned for a healthier future as we bring on the innovators, professionals, storytellers, and advocates who show you how to own your healthcare every Thursday at 5 p.m. Eastern Time on talkradio.nyc.
Are you a purpose-driven individual looking for deeper healing, clarity, and growth? Welcome to the Expansion Room, a transformative space for purpose-driven individuals. I'm Shervon Laurice, host, licensed therapist, and coach. Join me every Wednesday at 5 p.m. Eastern Time on talkradio.nyc.
You're listening to Talk Radio NYC at www.talkradio.nyc. Now broadcasting 24 hours a day.
So what's next? What is past the threshold? That's what we're talking about today in the episode of The Expansion Room, and this being the last episode that will be recorded on talkradio.nyc. And as I step into this new chapter or this new season of the show and new season of my own life, one theme has been alive for me, and it's been alive in my work and in my own inner world, that the power of embodied decision. Going back to what we were talking about before the break, right? Allowing something to really take hold in your emotional state, feeling into it, right? Feeling deeply connected to your identity is part of embodiment. And the power of embodied decision is not about logic. It's not about certainty. It's not even about having a specific kind of plan. Decision is about feeling into your own intuition, your own inner guidance system, your own frequency, so that you know in what direction, this way, that way, you want to go. Decision is frequency. And when you can decide on something, it shifts your energy towards alignment and it activates your next level, your next steps. When you make a decision, that means you can hold focus. You turn down the noise that might be going on and you hold focus. That's really what decision making is about, right? The same as turning the radio dial to get a certain radio station that has certain music, or maybe it's talk radio, right? You have to turn that dial, and when you get on that right station, it tunes out all the other stations, all the other noise, and hold that frequency in order to listen to what you're desiring to listen to. And so decision making is very similar to that. And it helps you to then step into the next level. It helps you to create momentum long before anything even changes externally, right? When you think about me wanting to do a pastoral counseling degree, I was excited long before I stepped into the classroom. I got that acceptance letter probably 6 months before I even stepped into a classroom. but I was excited. I knew where I was going because I had made a decision. My decision to reimagine this show, The Expansion Room, to step into a deeper sense of clarity with this show and to expand into more of a spiritually embodied space with this show is part of my own transformation. I feel like I've been on a long road or a long trip to get here. And the ahas and um, the joys that I've experienced in hosting this show um, on this platform have really sparked something in me. And hence why I'm wanting a little bit more flexibility and more spaciousness. But when I was really standing on that edge of that cliff and jumping into hosting, I had no idea that I was going to feel that, right? I was jumping into the unknown. I was saying yes to myself to do this thing, but I had no idea how I was going to feel about it. And it has really been one of the added joys to my life. And at this time in my life and at this age, I am only choosing the things that I feel like bring me joy, happiness, smile, peace, warmth, grace. And doing this podcast is one of them. So, my first episode in the relaunch, we will explore this idea of decision, how decision becomes the catalyst of inner shifts, identity, evolution, soul aligned growth. That's where we're going to start. But today, I want really to plant a seed to ask you what decision is your soul asking you to make? What decision is your soul asking you to make that would change everything for you? Right? So just pause, take a breath, come to that question, and feel into your body through your intuition as to what the answer is. Let that bubble to the surface. What change is your soul asking you to make that would literally change everything for you? Would it make you happier? Would it bring more abundance? Would it bring more connection in your life? Would it help you feel better in your body? Whatever that could be, allow that question to kind of float for you and see what answer comes to you. Feel it in your body, not in your mind. Because again, your body always tells you the truth first. So let's close with a quick practice. Wherever you are, just take a pause. Take a deep inhale in and a long, slow exhale out. Let your shoulders soften and let your jaw relax. And then placing one hand on your heart, feel your breath and feel your own presence. And in honor of the end of 2025, repeat this silently to yourself. I honor what has been. I welcome what is becoming. I step across the threshold with clarity, courage, and trust. Now take one more breath and release that. Let it go. I want to thank you all for being here today and all the other episodes that you've tuned into. Thank you for listening, for watching, for growing with me in this space. And again, thank you for talkradio.nyc. This is not goodbye. It is simply transition into a more sacred completion. And the first week of January, right around January 1st, the expansion room returned, reborn, and reimagined with more deeply rooted and embodied spirituality and conscious leadership. So make sure that you subscribe and receive notifications on whichever platform you watch or listen to the expansion room, so that you do not miss the relaunch. And until then, keep listening inward, keep following the pull of your own becoming, and keep expanding. And I'll see you on the other side of the threshold. Have a wonderful end of your year. Take care.
You're listening to Talk Radio NYC. Uplift, educate, empower.
On Frank About Health, we're not just